Granny here. I'm in Baton Rouge. I'm not leaving without you. I promise to God I'm not leaving without you.
I'm trying my best, baby. I'm gonna find you. All I want is my baby. I'll give anything for my child.
Welcome back to Crime Autopsy. Today, we're taking you to East Baton Rouge Parish, Louisiana, to a place locals call Ghost Town. It's 2:09 a.m. on June 5th, 2026. A 15-year-old boy rides a child's bicycle through the dark streets of North Baton Rouge. He weighs just 98 pounds. He's 4'7". He's heading to visit a friend, a 16-year-old girl he's known for years. He doesn't know it yet, but he's riding into a trap. By sunrise, JaDerriusMinniweather will have vanished from the face of the earth. No text messages, no social media activity, no financial transactions, no sightings, just nothing. And in his place, a 51-year-old high school coach caught on surveillance video doing something that defies any innocent explanation. This is the case of State versus Maurice Robbia Parms, a first-degree murder charge with no body, and a digital grooming trail that reads like a predator's playbook. I'm your host. This is Crime Autopsy. Let's cut through the surface and get to the bone. To understand what happened to JaDerriusMinniweather, you first have to understand who he was. JaDerrius was 15 years old. He was employed, working for the city's summer youth program. He was expecting his second paycheck. He had a job. He had responsibilities. He had a family that he communicated with regularly. His grandmother specifically noted something that forensic investigators call an anchoring behavior. Extended absence without contact. Completely inconsistent with who JaDerrius was. Think about that for a moment. A 15-year-old boy with no history of running away. A boy with a job and money coming in. A boy who stayed in touch with his family. And then, on June 5th, 2026, he simply stops existing. The complete absence of any post-disappearance digital or financial trace. In forensic missing persons analysis, that is statistically one of the strongest early indicators of foul play. JaDerrius was last seen riding that small child's bicycle to a residence on Bradley Street in the Ghost Town area of Baton Rouge. He was going to visit a 16-year-old female acquaintance, a friend, someone he trusted. He arrived around 2:01 a.m. Here's what's critical about that timeline. 2:01 a.m. means limited ambient lighting, sparse civilian witnesses. Surveillance footage, if it exists, is degraded in quality. The Ghost Town neighborhood designation suggests an area with informal social structures, and the mode of transport, a small child's bicycle, no motor, no escape route. Combine all of that. Late night arrival, 98-pound body mass, non-motorized transport, and an encounter with an adult male of significantly greater physical stature. Criminologists call this a severe asymmetric vulnerability scenario. JaDerriusMinniweather didn't stand a chance. Now let's talk about the man who would allegedly end JaDerrius's life. Maurice Robbia Parms, 51 years old, a coach at Istruma High School in Baton Rouge, described by witnesses as very tall, owned a white truck and a black SUV, prior criminal record, armed robbery, aggravated assault. Let me stop right there. In behavioral criminology, both of these prior offences share a structural commonality. They involve the use, or threatened use, of physical force to achieve an objective. This is called instrumental aggression, violence as a tool. And that pattern, it would allegedly re-emerge with devastating consequences on the night of June 5th. But here's what makes this case truly disturbing. The physical assault wasn't the beginning. It wasn't even the middle. The beginning was months earlier. Digital, calculated, and hidden in plain sight. In September 2025, Maurice Parms initiated contact with a 16-year-old girl. Not through standard text messaging, not through a traceable carrier account. He used TextNow. For those of you who don't know, TextNow is a voice-over internet protocol application. It assigns users anonymous phone numbers not tied to a carrier account or SIM card. In digital forensics, this is called platform displacement behavior. the conscious migration to less legally transparent communication infrastructure. In plain English, Parms chose a platform designed to hide his tracks. The communications continued for approximately 7 months, from September 2025 to April 2026. And what did those messages reveal? Textbook grooming. First, relational framing. Parms repeatedly told the 16-year-old, "I love you." He described their relationship as a romantic partnership. This is deliberate, the construction of an emotional bond designed to generate loyalty, secrecy, and compliance. Second, family integration language. Parms referred to his own 7-year-old daughter as the 16-year-old's stepdaughter. Let that sink in. A 51-year-old man telling a 16-year-old girl that his 7-year-old child is her stepdaughter. This is a documented grooming technique. By integrating the victim. Third, physical access. The 16-year-old disclosed she had met Parms in person multiple times, at his residence and inside his vehicles. In grooming case analysis, the transition from digital contact to physical access is called boundary escalation. And it's the moment when a predatory relationship becomes physically dangerous. The 7-month digital record does not establish impulsive behavior. It establishes a calculated, sustained predatory campaign with deliberate platform selection, consistent emotional manipulation, and successful physical access escalation. Parms was grooming this girl, and he had been doing it for nearly a year. Now here's something that should make your skin crawl. Parms was a coach at Istruma High School. A school coaching role provides institutional access to minors on a regular, supervised, socially normalized basis. It positions the coach in a trust hierarchy approximating parental authority, and it provides reputational cover. Employment in an educational institution reduces suspicion. In forensic profiling, these are called facilitated access roles. The grooming campaign began in September 2025. That aligns precisely with the start of the academic year, when a coaching role would provide maximum regular contact with students. Think about that. Parms wasn't just grooming one girl online. He was positioned inside a high school, every day, with access to dozens, potentially hundreds of students. The temporal alignment between his coaching role and the initiation of his grooming campaign warrants investigative scrutiny far beyond what has been publicly reported. Now let's reconstruct what happened on the night JaDerriusMinniweather vanished. June 5th, 2026. Approximately 2:00 a.m. JaDerrius arrives at the Bradley Street residence on his child's bicycle. But here's the critical detail. Surveillance footage captured Parms' white truck at that same residence earlier. For a duration of just 2 to 3 minutes, he departs. And he takes the 16-year-old girl with him to get food. 2 to 3 minutes. That's not a social visit. That's reconnaissance, confirming who's at the location, verifying the minor is present, establishing the presence or absence of other individuals. Parms and the girl return to the location, and now JaDerrius is there, an unsanctioned third party, a witness. The arrest warrant documents what happened next. A very tense disagreement erupted between Minniweather and Parms, triggered by Minniweather's objection to how Parms was treating the 16-year-old. From Parms' perspective, this confrontation represented an existential threat, an immediate exposure risk. A 15-year-old who witnessed and objected could communicate to parents, school officials, or law enforcement. In behavioral criminology, this is classified as a threat to exposure confrontation, one of the highest risk situational triggers for reactive instrumental violence in predatory offenders with established aggression histories. JaDerrius weighed 98 pounds. He was 4'7". Parms is described as very tall. The physical disparity made physical escalation low risk from Parms' perspective, and made the assault, once initiated, rapidly lethal without requiring weapons. A witness reported observing what happened next. A very tall black male beating a smaller person severely for several minutes. A softer voice was heard pleading for the assault to stop. Let's break down what that testimony tells us. Several minutes of sustained physical assault on a 98-pound individual. Medical literature on blunt force trauma establishes that repeated impacts to a low body mass individual over an extended duration produce cumulative traumatic injury that rapidly exceeds survivability thresholds. The softer voice pleading. That indicates the victim was conscious and verbal during at least part of the assault. JaDerrius was alive, he was aware, and he was begging for it to stop. Think about that. A 15-year-old boy, 98 pounds, being beaten by a much larger adult male for minutes, pleading for mercy. And the beating continued. Large, suspected bloodstains would later be found soaked into the area where the altercation happened. What happens after the assault is where this case becomes truly extraordinary from a forensic perspective. Parms' post-offense behavior reveals a multi-stage evidence concealment protocol, and it was all captured on surveillance footage. First, departure from the crime scene. Parms was captured riding the victim's small child's bicycle from the scene back to his own residence. Let me emphasize how bizarre this is. A 51-year-old man, described as very tall, riding a small vehicle avoidance, keeping his vehicles away from the immediate crime scene during the highest risk post-offense window. The bicycle simultaneously removed a physical item from the scene that would have anchored Minniweather to that location. Second, evidence disposal. Surveillance captured Parms discarding a black mask, gloves, and a t-shirt into garbage cans along his route. A mask and gloves. During what was ostensibly a social encounter, in warm Louisiana summer weather. Neither item has a plausible innocent explanation. The deliberate disposal into separate garbage cans indicates methodical evidence elimination executed under post-offense stress conditions. Third, evidence retrieval. Surveillance subsequently captured Parms returning to the garbage cans to retrieve the disposed items, then placing them inside his truck. This behavioral reversal indicates risk recalculation. Parms may have assessed that garbage cans on a public route were not a secure disposal location. It also demonstrates sustained cognitive engagement with evidence management in the hours following the assault. This is not the behavior of an individual in psychological shock. This is the behavior of an individual actively managing a crime scene's evidentiary footprint. Fourth, vehicle wipe down. Surveillance captured Parms wiping down his truck, following retrieval of the disposed items, following the transport of potentially contaminated items. The sequential logic forms a coherent evidence elimination chain, indicating sustained rational planning rather than panic response. As of today, June 25, 2026, JaDerriusMinniweather's body has not been found. Let me give you a sense of the scale of this search. The United Cajun Navy, a volunteer search and rescue group, along with a canine tracking outfit from Texas, has searched roughly 3,000 acres. More than 90 dumpsters and trash cans across the Baton Rouge area. Wooded areas off US Highway 61. Areas beneath multiple bridges. An abandoned church structure behind the Salvation Army. Levee and riverbank zones. A cement structure removed by excavator near the arrest scene. 5 certified canines, described as probably some of the best in the country, have been deployed. These dogs can smell something up to 10 miles away when facing into the wind. And still, nothing. The breadth of the search area suggests investigators do not have high-confidence intelligence on the body's location. The excavator activity indicates they're exploring the possibility of concealment under solid construction material, a disposal method that significantly impedes both canine detection and physical recovery. Louisiana summer temperatures above 90 degrees Fahrenheit accelerate biological decomposition substantially, which reduces but does not eliminate DNA recovery potential from bone material. Here's the legal reality of this case. The absence of JaDerriusMinniweather's remains does not legally preclude a first-degree murder conviction, but it fundamentally restructures the prosecutorial burden. Rather than anchoring the case in physical pathological evidence, the prosecution must construct a convergent, circumstantial evidence model. Multiple independent evidence streams that collectively eliminate reasonable alternative explanations for the victim's disappearance. Louisiana jurisprudence does not require a body for murder conviction. Corpus delicti refers to proof that a crime occurred, not literally to physical remains. What must be proven is three things: that JaDerriusMinniweather is dead, that his death resulted from criminal agency, and that Maurice Parms was the criminal agent responsible. Establishing death. The prosecution's strongest asset is the behavioral baseline deviation. JaDerrius had active anchoring behaviors, employment, pending financial compensation, consistent family communication, none of which have produced any post-disappearance activity. No financial transactions, no digital communications, no sightings. In forensic missing persons analysis, the complete cessation of all anchoring behavior traces over a 20-day period in a 15-year-old with no history of runaway behavior constitutes strong inferential evidence of death. Additionally, large suspected bloodstains at the altercation location provide physical evidence of significant bodily injury. Establishing criminal agency. This is where the prosecution's case is strongest. 4 independent evidence streams converge: witness testimony of the assault, blood evidence at the scene, post-offense concealment behavior, and body concealment indicators. Establishing Parms as the criminal agent. 5 evidentiary assets support this: surveillance continuity, physical description match, the mask and gloves, motive architecture, and digital evidence. The presence of a mask and gloves and its most significant analytical puzzle. 2 competing interpretations exist. First, that Parms arrived wearing personal protective equipment, anticipating violence. The confrontation with Minniweather occurred within a pre-established readiness for violence. This supports first-degree murder. Second, that the mask and gloves were tools of grooming concealment rather than premeditated homicide preparation. Under this interpretation, the homicide may have been reactive, which could support a lesser charge. But here's what weighs against the second interpretation: the sustained duration of the assault. Several minutes. That's not a reactive outburst. That's a sustained intentional act. And it strengthens the first-degree framing. Defense attorney Franz Borghardt, who works on criminal cases in the area, said murder convictions without a body are possible. You still have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the person accused of a crime did it, Borghardt said. But it is not impossible to prove it. And in fact, nationally and locally, we've had cases where people have been convicted of murder when there is no body. A competent defense team will construct strategy around 3 primary arguments. First, corpus delicti insufficiency. Without a body, the defense will argue the prosecution cannot establish beyond a reasonable doubt that Minniweather is dead. They will emphasize the theoretical possibility of voluntary disappearance. Second, alternative suspect theory. The witness description of a very tall black male is not an unambiguous identification of Parms. Defense may argue Parms' post-incident behavior reflects fear of wrongful implication, given his prior record and concurrent juvenile solicitation charges. Third, premeditation negation. Even if the jury accepts that Parms caused Minniweather's death, the defense will argue insufficient evidence of specific intent for first-degree murder, seeking a manslaughter or second-degree verdict. Analyst assessment. The first argument is the strongest and will be the primary battleground. The second is weakest, given the surveillance continuity. The third is moderately viable and may represent the defense's most realistic path, not to acquittal, but to a lesser conviction. There are 5 variables that could determine the outcome of this case. First, DNA confirmation of blood evidence, not yet publicly confirmed, critical for establishing death. Second, vehicle forensic analysis, luminol and DNA extraction from truck interior, despite the wipe-down attempt. Third, full TextNow data extraction. The complete archive may contain statements regarding Minniweather. Fourth, cement structure excavation results. potentially the highest impact outstanding variable in the case. Fifth, additional witness identification, whether the 16-year-old or others directly witnessed the assault. The case against Maurice Robbia Parms is, by the standards of no-body homicide prosecution, evidentiary above average, but not without significant risk. The prosecution possesses a documented behavioral chain of remarkable density, from the pre-incident grooming architecture through the post-offense evidence elimination sequence. The surveillance record is continuous, and behavioral interpretation is largely unfavorable to the defense. The motive is documented, structured, and directly connected to the incident trigger. The primary prosecutorial vulnerability is singular but substantial. The body has not been recovered. Every other evidentiary stream in this case is strong. The absence of physical remains creates an irresolvable space in the evidential architecture, one that a skilled defense team will systematically exploit. What the evidence establishes with analytical confidence: a 15-year-old boy with no behavioral predisposition toward voluntary disappearance, who challenged an adult male's predatory relationship with a minor peer, has not been seen or digitally traced in 20 days. The adult male he confronted has been documented engaging in a sustained post-offense evidence elimination sequence consistent with consciousness of guilt for a fatal criminal act. What the evidence cannot yet establish with certainty: the precise mechanism of death, the location of the victim's remains, and the degree of premeditation. Each of these will be determinative in the ultimate adjudication of this case. As of June 25, 2026, Parms remains in East Baton Rouge Parish Prison. The search for JaDerriusMinniweather continues. East Baton Rouge Mayor President Sid Edwards addressed the case with a message that resonates: "We will hunt you down. We will find you. Don't fool with our babies in Baton Rouge."